guys, welcome to W&L Review. Today we will be reviewing one movie. That movie is The Visit, written and directed by M. Night Shyamalan. The Visit was released in 2015 and it is rated PG-13. And with that, I will let my daughter tell you more about it.
So, it all starts off with our two main characters' mother. She has been estranged from her parents for many years because they got into a fight. And so our two main characters, Tyler and Becca, have never met their grandparents. And Becca wants to make this basically a documentary for her mom. That way, she's hoping that her mom and her grandparents will get along again. And everything will be fine. So, the story goes, and Tyler and Becca go to their grandparents, Becca recording it all like a documentary, and they get there, and everything starts off kind of normal until nightfall, and things start to get a little strange. So, they have a curfew, basically. They have to be in bed by 9:30, and their grandparents don't want them to leave their room. And Becca is really obsessed with her grandma's cookies, and she really wants some more. So she goes out, and she saw her grandma throwing up. She's in the entryway, and she's just, throwing up onto the floor. And so she got really scared, and she ran back to her room, and she was talking to Tyler, and she's like, I don't know what just happened. And so the next morning comes, and she asks her grandpa what was going on. And her grandpa just told her, it must have been just a 24-hour bug. She wasn't feeling great, but she didn't want to cancel your guys' visit. So they're like, okay, everything's fine. And the day goes on, and things are okay, but things slowly get more and more weird, especially after the next night. The next night, Tyler wakes up Becca because he hears scratching on the walls and stuff, and he's really confused, and they go out and look, and their grandma is scratching on the walls, butt naked. And so he's scarred for life. And they run back into the room, and they're like, what the heck did we just witness? And so the next day, they ask their grandpa what's going on again. And he basically just tells them she's old. She has what's called sundowners. And they're like, okay, well, yeah, that is a legitimate thing. And it's fine. They're just older people. And they call their mom, and Tyler wants to say something, but Becca's just like, no, don't rock the boat, everything's fine, they're just old people. But he says something, and she kind of nudges him, and then their mom's like, well, what level of, a problem is this? And Becca responds with, well, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's a 1. And looks at Tyler, and Tyler says, yeah, it's a 1. Because they think, they're just old people. So the next day, they go out with their grandfather, and they go on a car ride, and because they wanted to kind of look around town, because it's a small
the old
town.
Stomping grounds where their mom grew up and stuff.
Yeah, and they go to her high school. Oh, no, you're fine. And their grandpa sees someone across the street, and he swears that he's being watched or followed or something. And so he goes over and tries to start something with the guy, like a fight. And then they break it up, and they're like, what the heck just happened? And Becca, yet again, tells Tyler, they're old people, their minds aren't what they used to be. It's nothing major. And so the day continues, and Tyler has been now also given a camera to kind of document things. And he decides to mess around because he saw his grandpa going in the shed. And so he goes in to see what's in this shed that his grandpa constantly is going in there with. And he finds a bunch of these diapers filled with...
Incontinent briefs, yeah.
Yeah. Filled with, well, I'm sure you guys can guess what. And, it smells, and so he runs out. And so he asks his grandma, what the heck? And she says he's incontinent. Basically what he does is he's really ashamed of it, so he takes them out to the shed and he burns them. Because he doesn't want anyone to know. And they're like, oh, okay. And they go on, and they decide to play hide and seek, Becca and Tyler, with each other underneath the house, just like her mom used to do when she was little. And they were recording it, of course. And they were playing and everything was going great until, out of nowhere, their grandma is under there, like chasing after them, making like these noises and stuff, which is extremely terrifying. And then once she basically chases them out from under the house, she just acts like nothing's wrong, we were just playing. And so, stuff like this kind of continues until the very last night. They
both basically were like, okay, now the girl starts to realize, something's not quite right.
Yeah. And they got on another Skype call with their mom, and they're like, their mom was asking, well, where are your grandparents? I'd like to see them. And they're like, well, they're outside. And I mind you, earlier in the film, their camera had been tampered with by the grandmother. She accidentally spilled some stuff on it while cooking and couldn't get it off, and it just happened to land right on the camera. So Becca was finally able to get the substance off of the camera so her mom could see. And she says, those are not my parents. She tries to call the local police, and she can't get through. So she's like,
Get out of
the house, go to a neighbor's, do something, I'll be there as soon as I can. But of course, she doesn't even live in the same town, so it takes her a while. And that's right when, once the Skype call ends, the grandfather walks in and decides that they're going to play games tonight. So the kids don't have an escape. They can't escape. And so they're playing games and everything is going okay-ish. And Becca excuses herself from the games to go to the bathroom. But she decided to check out the basement, which her grandparents at the very beginning of this had said, don't go down into the basement. There's black mold down there. We don't want you guys going down there. She decided, after all of this weirdness, she's like, I don't think they're telling the truth about why they don't want us to go down there. So she decides to go and check, and what she finds is this dumpster, and she's looking through it, and it's pictures of her actual grandparents. And then she finds these mental hospital, jumpsuits. Scrubs.
Not scrubs, but whatever.
Yeah. With blood on them. And she deduces what has happened, because her grandparents worked at a mental hospital as basically like volunteer psychiatrists. And they'd help out. But the last 2-3 weeks or so, they weren't showing up, and they had periodically had, during the visit of Tyler and Becca, had some people showing up asking to see them, and it just so happened to coincide whenever their grandparents were out at the house. And so it's deduced that these were not their grandparents, for sure. Their grandparents were murdered by these people, and these people find out
her real grandparents there too.
Yeah, in the dumpster. And it's found out that what they thought were their grandparents were escaped mental patients. And so it goes on, and the male, their we'll just say their grandfather, even though we all now know he's not, comes down and finds Becca snooping and tries to attack her. And she gets away. Well, no, she doesn't get away. She's then taken up to their grandmother's bedroom and locked in there with her. And then we see the grandfather coming back down to Tyler, who is still sitting at the table, not knowing what to do. And so then we're flashed back to Becca in the room with her grandmother, and her grandmother's trying to kill her. Then Tyler has this phobia with germs, and he always has had since their father left their mom. And his grandfather takes his incontinent brief.
Oh, this part's so gross.
And shoves it in Tyler's face. And we later found out that it was like there for like a half an hour, like that. Later on in the movie, when Tyler's talking about it. And eventually Becca is able to get away from her grandmother and stop her grandfather. And they run out of the house, and they hear the sirens, and they see their mom, and everything's okay. And the last scene is Becca interviewing her mom for this documentary, and asking about her actual grandparents. And that's the movie. When we first watched this, it absolutely terrified me because it was so well done and very, very scary.
Yes.
And I'm, as much as like that part with the grandfather and Tyler was absolutely disgusting, it was like the movie as an overall whole was great. I'll let my mom tell you her opinion.
I thought The Visit was hands down one of the scariest thrillers that I have seen in a while. It's nice to watch a thriller rather than always, when you want to get a scare, there's a lot of like slasher movies out there. But it's nice to watch a thriller movie that scares the pants off you when you don't have a slasher movie in it. But it is very scary, and I don't care how many times I watch that movie, I still jump at the parts that, like there's a part where the grandma, she Tyler has tried to convince his sister, there's something fishy going on here, and he wants her to put a camera in the living room to kind of, to prove to his sister there's something odd, there's something really strange here. And so he hides. So she's like, okay, fine, we'll hide the camera. So they kind of tried to hide the camera behind like some pictures.
Yeah.
And Grandma finds it, and she kind of like, not just did she find it, but she jumps into the frame, and I came out almost out of my skin. I mean, I've seen this movie a few times, and it still scares the poo out of me. So
exactly,
it's definitely, I would say, a good scare your pants off movie. I would recommend that if you have teenagers, it's a good scare movie. You don't have to worry about blood and guts and gore and things like that. I would minus the incontinent brief, but minus that, you don't have to worry about that. There is language in this movie, so definitely. I would be very fair warned of that. If you're very offended about watching movies with language, then this may not be the movie for you. Other than that, it is a really good movie. It is PG-13, which I don't think there was any F-bombs that I can recall in the movie, but there was other language for sure. And our dog is trying to give his opinion of the movie too. It is a good movie. It is one that I think that it would be good, like, to watch on a, on a Friday night or Saturday night, watch. He was whispering sweet nothings in her ear, I think. I'm not sure.
I don't know.
Anyway, it's one of those kind of movies. It's just a good scare kind of movie. And I don't know what else I could say other than I would give it a shot if you haven't seen it before, and watch it. But I would say if you have little ones, don't watch it with them because they probably most likely would have a nightmare.
Definitely.
And don't watch it if you don't like a lot of language because this does have language in it.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. So would you like to add anything?
I don't think so.
Okay. Well, with that, guys, we would like to say thanks for joining us, and hit that subscribe button, hit the like button, hit the little notification bell so that way you know whenever we make a new video. And special thanks to Marion, also known as Life Unboxed. And we'd also like to thank all of our new subscribers and our tried and trues that stay with us and have stayed with us since the beginning. We weren't sure we were going to continue our channel, but we are going to muster through and we're going to continue our channel with a lot of love and support from good people, and we thank you for that. And with all that yammering, I will say we'll see you next time. Bye!